You know that moment when your phone buzzes, and you think it's just a check-in from one of your kids? That's what I thought this was. I had just finished loading groceries into the trunk and was sipping lukewarm coffee from my thermos when I saw the notification pop up from the family group chat. Johnson Family Business Planning. That's what we'd renamed it when I brought my kids into the business years ago. I thought it was a good way to keep things collaborative. Turns out, it became a place for them to plot. My 3 children, Jake, Danny, and Carla, were mid-conversation. My name kept showing up in the preview, so I opened it, figuring they needed input on something. What I saw made me stop chewing my gum. Jake had written, "Mom's 61 now. We need to talk about transitioning leadership. The business needs fresh energy. She should be thinking about retirement, not running day-to-day operations." Danny chimed in, "Exactly, she's been amazing, but it's time to modernize. We can't grow with her running everything like it's still 1998. And then Carla, my youngest, the one who used to sit on my desk and color while I negotiated supplier contracts, added, "We love her, but she's too old to lead the company into the next chapter. It's time for us to step in fully. She can stay on part-time if she wants." Part-time in the company I built from scratch after their father died while they were in middle school. I sat in the car for a while, didn't cry, didn't text back right away, just watched those little typing bubbles pop up and vanish as my children plotted to oust me from the business I'd poured my soul into for 30 years. But the thing is, I smiled. I actually chuckled because what they didn't know was that, while they were whispering behind my back and planning how to transition me out, I had been preparing for something. They saw a tired, gray-haired woman stuck in her ways. What they didn't see was the quiet network of relationships, contracts, and leverage I'd been carefully cultivating. So I typed back one message. "Understood. See you at the meeting tomorrow." Then I drove home. Not sad, not angry, just ready. They were about to learn that their old mom didn't get to where she is by being easy to push around. Before we continue, please leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and subscribe to the Still Got It channel. We're creating a community of incredible people who know that our best chapters can happen at any age. Now, back to the story. Let me rewind a bit. I'm Susan, 61 years old, and apparently, I've passed my expiration date. According to the 3 people I brought into this world, I started Johnson Print and Supply from a little corner unit in the industrial side of Seattle when I was 31. My husband, Robert, had just passed away. Sudden heart attack. I had 3 kids under the age of 10, no college degree, and not a single person offering to help except with casseroles. The day after the funeral, I sat in the kitchen staring at an overdue gas bill and realized nobody was coming to save me. So, I decided I'd save myself and them. I sold our minivan, took a second mortgage on the house, and rented an 800 square FT commercial space with one aging printer and a box of business cards that just said Susan Johnson, owner. No slogan, no website, just a stubborn woman and a mountain of pressure. In the early years, I'd pick the kids up from school and bring them to the office. I set up a play area in the back with hand-me-down toys and a second-hand couch. Carla used to nap under the folding table with her blanket while I processed invoices. Jake helped me call for flyers when he was 8. Danny would sort paper scraps like he was helping with inventory. I skipped holidays. I missed sleep. I once pulled an all-nighter doing a 5,000 copy rush job while Carla had the flu and slept in my lap between print batches. There were years I couldn't afford to take a paycheck. I'd cover payroll for my employees while eating peanut butter sandwiches for dinner. I pawned my engagement ring to pay off a late supplier bill. That ring was the only thing of Robert's I hadn't given to the kids, and it bought me 30 more days of business. When Jake graduated college and said he wanted to join the company, I cried in the parking lot of an Applebee's. Not because I was happy, because I was terrified. I didn't want him to tie his future to something still so fragile, but I also didn't want to say no. He was excited. He believed in what I'd built. Danny followed a few years later, then Carla. I let them carve out their own roles. I wanted them to have pride, ownership, autonomy. I wanted them to grow into the business, not just inherit it, but feel like they'd helped shape it. Every time we landed a big client, I'd take the whole family out for pizza. When the company made its first million, I bought each of them a bonus check and framed one copy of it in the office break room. Built together, it said at the bottom. That's how I thought of the business, as something we built as a family. I turned down buyout offers, big ones, because I believed this was our legacy, something we could pass down, not just in paperwork, but in spirit. But now those same children were discussing me like a maintenance issue, calling me too old for the same business I stayed young to protect. They hadn't just forgotten what I'd sacrificed, they'd rewritten the story to erase me from it. The group text that changed everything started innocently enough. We'd been tossing around the idea of future planning for months, but it was always vague. Eventually, talk. Nothing serious, nothing formal. Then, last Tuesday, a message popped up in our family business chat. Jake started it. Time for a serious conversation about the future of Johnson Print and Supply. Meeting Friday to discuss leadership transition. I remember feeling a little anxious, but also hopeful. After 30 years, maybe they were finally ready to acknowledge what I'd built, what we could build together going forward. Then the replies started. Jake led the charge. We've been thinking about this for a while. The business needs fresh leadership, someone with energy and a more modern outlook. Danny added, right, the industry is changing fast. We need to be agile, forward-thinking. That kind of leadership is important now more than ever. I was about to write something back. Something about how experience and innovation can coexist, how stability supports growth, but Carla beat me to it. This isn't easy, but we have to be realistic about age and long-term capacity. That one hit harder than I expected. Capacity, like I was a worn-out machine they were worried would fail during peak season. Then Jake dropped the real agenda. Mom's been amazing with administration and back-end stuff, but a CEO needs stamina and vision at 61. And Danny, it's not personal. We just need leadership that can guide the company through the next 20 years. I wanted to respond, to remind them that I was the one who negotiated our first big contracts, who kept this business alive during the 2008 crash, who worked double shifts when our first press machine caught fire, but I didn't get the chance. Carla finished it off. She's had a great run. Maybe this is her time to finally enjoy life, do something for herself. We'll take it from here. And Jake sealed the deal. Danny and I can handle operations. Carla's got marketing. Mom can stay on part-time, help with administration and transition, make things easier. I sat there staring at my phone, the words swimming around as if they were about someone else. But it was me they were discussing like I was a fixture in the building they were planning to move out. Part-time in a business I built with nothing but grief, debt, and grit. The part that stayed with me wasn't even the suggestion itself, it was the tone, confident, casual, already decided, as if they'd just finished solving a logistics issue, not reassigning their mother to the sidelines. And then, it hit me. This hadn't started on Tuesday. This had been brewing behind closed doors for weeks. Quiet talks, strategy meetings, plans made without me. They hadn't included me because they didn't see me as necessary anymore. The next morning, the shift was obvious. Tony, Carla's husband, was in the lobby setting up mock-ups for a brand refresh. Jake was walking clients through our process like he was already at the helm. Danny had printed a new floor plan for efficiency. Nobody said anything directly to me, but I could feel it. The energy, the smugness, the sense that they'd taken over. That evening, I got the final call. Jake again. Just wanted to prep you for tomorrow, Mom. We want this to go smoothly. Everyone's really excited about the new direction. New direction. And there it was, the unspoken line between us. They weren't looking to build on what I created. They were looking to replace it. Replace me. He said they'd make sure I'd still have a role, helping with administration. Helping, like a temp. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I just said, understood. See you tomorrow. Then I sat in the quiet of my living room, looking at the old framed photos of our first storefront. My kids were toddlers in that picture. Danny with ink on his cheeks. Jake holding a clipboard like he knew what it meant. Carla on my hip watching everything with wide, curious eyes. I built this for them, and now they decided it was theirs. I went to bed without saying much, but I didn't sleep. I planned. The next few days were some of the most humiliating of my life. It's strange, isn't it? You can give your entire adult life to something, and the moment people think you're no longer useful, they start acting like you're already gone. Wednesday morning, I walked into the office like usual. Same keycard, same blazer, same thermos of coffee in my hand. but the looks on everyone's faces told me things had changed. And not because of anything I'd done. Tony, Carla's husband, was by the front desk when I walked in. He avoided eye contact at first, then offered this half-smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Morning, Susan," he said, voice tight, sort of like someone smiling at a funeral, trying to be polite but not knowing what to say. "Morning," I offered. He paused, then said, "You doing okay with everything?" I blinked. "With what?" "Oh, I just meant, the changes. Heard there's a meeting Friday." He looked like he immediately regretted bringing it up, eyes darting to the hallway. I nodded slowly. "Ah, that." He mumbled something about checking on a delivery and scurried off. So, word was out. My children hadn't just decided my future without me. They'd shared the plan like gossip at a neighborhood barbecue. And it wasn't just Tony. In the break room, I ran into Rebecca, Jake's wife. She's never worked here, but she floats in sometimes pretending to check on things. She offered me that same soft voice people reserve for folks recovering from surgery. "Susan, honey, I just want you to know that nobody thinks less of you for stepping back. 61 is still young. You could travel, take up hobbies, maybe even date again." I almost laughed, not because she was funny, but because of how confidently she'd put me in a category I hadn't asked to be placed in. I was a problem they'd already decided how to fix. "I appreciate your concern," I said. "I'll let you know if I take up paddleboarding." She looked pleased with herself, like she'd offered a blessing. But the worst part wasn't the awkward sympathy. It was the way my own children moved through the office like they'd already taken over. Jake had rearranged the front reception desk for better client flow, which actually just meant moving everything around so it looked more like one of those startup offices he admires on social media. Carla had a designer walking through the halls, pointing at walls and murmuring things about palette refresh and modern branding. Danny was meeting with 2 of our top clients without looping me in. He didn't even mention it, just blocked time on the shared calendar like it was his company now. They weren't waiting for Friday's meeting. They were already acting like it was done. That night, I tried to distract myself by cleaning the kitchen. I reorganized the spice cabinet, wiped down the fridge coils, even tried to scrub a mark off the backsplash I'd ignored for 2 years, but none of it worked. At around 8:30, my phone buzzed. "Jake." "Hey Mom," he said, his tone too cheerful, too practiced. "Just wanted to check in before tomorrow. You good?" I leaned against the counter. "I'm fine, Jake. What's up?" "Well, just wanted to prep you a little. Tomorrow's meeting might feel formal, but we're doing this with love, okay?" That word, love, rang hollow coming from someone who'd handed me a demotion via group chat. He went on, "You've built something incredible, and nobody's ignoring that. We just think it's time for you to enjoy life. Let us take it from here." There it was again. Enjoy life. Like I hadn't been enjoying it. Like the business I created, bled for, fought for, wasn't part of that life. "I see," I said simply. "We'll make sure you're still involved," he added. "You could stay on part-time, help with administration, handle vendor paperwork, stuff you're already great at. No pressure, just a smooth transition. I stared at the kitchen tile. "I hear you," I replied. "Good," he said, clearly relieved. "Okay, well, we'll see you at 2 tomorrow." Yep. He hung up. I stood there in the quiet, my hands still on the edge of the counter. I had built this company with my bare hands and a box of used office chairs. I took on debt, skipped meals, learned every line of every invoice system back when we had to manually fax them. And now I was being told politely, of course, that my services were no longer required. And the people telling me that, my children, they weren't doing it out of cruelty. That was almost worse. They were doing it with smiles, with logic, with clean managerial language like transition planning and next-generation leadership. I thought about what I wanted to say the next day. I thought about arguing, about defending myself, listing all the things they didn't know how to do without me, but something stopped me. It was this still, hard feeling in my chest. Not sadness, not fury, clarity. They had already made up their minds. So, I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to fight for scraps at a table I built. I was going to let them walk into that meeting thinking they'd won. And then I was going to show them what they'd actually thrown away. Friday afternoon arrived, like a storm I could see coming all week. I didn't rush into it. I took my time that morning, made coffee, reviewed my notes, straightened the folder I had prepared the night before. I wasn't nervous. I was ready, and that's a different feeling altogether. The meeting was set for 2. I walked into the office at 1:45, not a minute earlier. Carla was already in the conference room talking to a young designer I didn't recognize. She was pointing at a tablet and saying something about color palettes and brand evolution. Jake and Danny were there too, seated on the far side of the table, papers spread out in front of them like they were about to pitch to a venture capital firm. They'd dressed up for the occasion. Danny even wore a blazer, which he usually avoided, unless he was trying to impress someone. No one stood when I entered. No one offered me coffee. Just a few nods, like I was a guest at their event. I took my seat at the other end of the long table. Not the head, not the foot, just one chair. On my own side, I placed my folder in front of me and waited. Jake started. "Thanks for being here, Mom," he said, with the voice of someone who thought he was being kind. "We know this isn't easy, but we really appreciate you making time for this." I didn't answer. I just looked at him and nodded once. Slowly, he glanced at Danny, who jumped in next. "We've been doing a lot of thinking about where the business is going," Danny said, "and we're really excited about the possibilities. Expansion, diversification, more digital services, a younger, more agile image." Carla added, "We've already spoken to a couple of firms about rebranding. Nothing final, of course, but we've got proposals ready, new logos, new messaging, something that reflects where we're headed." Jake leaned forward, folding his hands like he was a coach delivering a tough but fair decision. "And obviously, we want you to be part of that, Mom, just in a different capacity. A support role, administration oversight, consulting if you want, whatever feels comfortable for you." Carla chimed in again. "You've earned it. You shouldn't have to deal with day-to-day stress anymore." I looked at them for a moment. All 3 of my children seated across from me like a panel of judges deciding how best to dispose of their mother's authority. I gave them a long pause. Then I reached into my folder and pulled out the first sheet. "Well," I said, keeping my voice steady and polite, "since you're taking over operations, I figured I should bring you up to speed on a few foundational items." Jake smiled, still thinking he was running the meeting. "Sure. Yeah, that'd be great." I slid the first document across the table toward Danny. "Our lease," I said. "It expires next month." Danny blinked. "Wait, I thought we renewed that last year." "No," I said. "You didn't." "I did. Through Highland Commercial." Jake squinted. "That's the company that owns the building, right?" I nodded. "Yes. A holding company I established 5 years ago." Silence. Danny picked up the paper and read the header again. You own the building." "For the past 3 years," I said. "You've been paying me rent every month." Jake sat back in his chair, looking genuinely thrown. "Are you serious?" I nodded again, calm. "When we hit that rough patch, when we lost those 2 major accounts and had to downsize the team, we needed liquidity. I created Highland, purchased the building at market rate, and leased it back to the company quietly so no one would panic." Carla looked confused. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because it wasn't your burden," I said. "At the time, none of you were involved in the finances. You were focused on sales and marketing. I made the decision to protect our foundation." Jake cleared his throat. "Okay. So, what are you saying now?" "I'm saying the lease is up for renewal, and market rates have changed. You'll be paying $4,000 more a month going forward." Danny looked down, doing mental math. "That's more than double." "Yes," I said. "Welcome to the commercial real estate market in this city." They were still processing when I pulled out the second set of papers. "These," I said, "are our supplier agreements. Henderson Paper Supply, Metro Inc. Solutions, Industrial Equipment Services." Carla reached for them. "These are personal agreements," I continued, "tied to me, not to the company." Jake frowned. "But we've been working with those vendors for years." "Yes," I said, "because I negotiated those relationships. When we nearly defaulted on a bulk paper order 3 years ago, I gave Henderson a personal guarantee. When Metro Inc. threatened to drop us for a bigger client, I renegotiated the terms and offered exclusivity in my name, not Johnson Print and Supplies." Carla flipped through the pages quickly. "Wait, this says they'll only continue the relationship with your written approval." "Correct," I said. "They're under no obligation to work with new management." Danny ran a hand through his hair. "So, If you leave, they can terminate the relationship, or renegotiate, or walk away. No one spoke, so I kept going. These, I said, holding up another folder, are our business credit agreements. Every single one of our lines is tied to my personal credit history. Without that, they're suspended until new guarantors can be vetted. Jake looked visibly pale now. That could take months, I said, or longer, especially with new leadership and no personal assets backing the loans. I let that sink in for a moment before pulling out the final set of papers. And these, I said, placing them gently on the table, are our client service agreements. Patterson Industries, City Government Services, Riverside Medical Group. Danny picked up the one from Riverside and started reading. Each of these accounts was secured through me personally, I said. They requested my involvement. They have clauses that allow them to terminate if I'm no longer actively managing their projects. Jake looked up. You're saying if you step away, they leave? I'm saying, I replied, or at least they have the right to. I folded my hands and looked at each of them. So, if you want to take over, be my guest. You'll have a company with no building, no suppliers, no clients, and number credit. The room was silent except for the quiet sound of paper shifting in their hands. Jake finally spoke. Mom, we didn't know. I know you didn't, I said. You didn't ask. Carla looked down at the table. We weren't trying to push you out. We just thought that you thought I was tired. I finished for her, irrelevant, in the way. She didn't answer. I stood up, gathered my documents, and slid them back into the folder neatly, deliberately. Then, I looked at each of them. Jake, Danny, Carla. I'm not angry, I said. I'm not even hurt anymore. But I do want you to understand something. They all sat frozen, waiting. You wanted to take over something you didn't build. You tried to take the crown without ever laying a single brick, and that's not how this works. I paused. Let the silence do its job. So now, I continued, you have two options. Their expressions shifted. Confusion first, then apprehension. This isn't revenge, I added. This is a mother teaching her children a lesson they clearly never learned. I stepped forward slightly, calm as ever. Option 1. Each of you gives me your resignation letter by the end of next week. You're free to start your own business, follow your own ideas, create your own vision from scratch with your own risk. That's how I did it. They didn't speak. Not yet. Option 2. I resign. Now they looked up. And if I resign, I said, you already know what happens. The building, the suppliers, the clients, the credit, all of it goes with me. You won't have a business left to lead. Carla opened her mouth, but I held up a hand. I'm not asking for a debate. I'm giving you a choice. You have until next Friday. And with that, I turned and walked out. The door closed behind me with a soft click. No slamming, no drama, just the sound of power shifting back where it belonged. The next morning, I showed up to the office at 8:05 sharp, like I always did. Nothing about my posture had changed. Same blazer, same keys, same no-nonsense stride down the hallway. But everything else had. It was quiet when I walked in, too quiet. The kind of silence that settles in when people don't know what to say. I passed a few employees near the break room. No small talk, just polite nods. One of them, Hannah from accounting, opened her mouth like she was going to say something, then decided against it. I understood. No one wanted to pick a side too early. When I reached my office, there were 3 unread emails waiting in my inbox. The first was from a longtime client, Patterson Industries, confirming our upcoming renewal contract. It was addressed directly to me, and only me. The second was from Metro Inc., asking to confirm I was still the point of contact for future orders. The third was from Jake. It read, we should chat. That was it. No greeting, no signature, just that awkward, unfinished tone you use when you don't know what kind of reply you're going to get. I didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, I sat back and waited. By noon, Carla emailed too. Hers had a bit more polish. Classic Carla. She wrote, Hi, Mom. I think it would be helpful for all of us to regroup. Maybe clear the air a bit. Let us know what works for you. That's when I knew they felt it. Not just the shift, the consequences. Because when you take something for granted and then suddenly realize it wasn't guaranteed, the air gets a little tighter around you. By mid-afternoon, Danny showed up outside my door. He hovered for a minute, then knocked lightly. Got a second. I waved him in. He sat across from me, fidgeting with the edge of his sleeve. I just wanted to talk about yesterday. I nodded. Okay, I think we got ahead of ourselves. We were just excited, I guess, about growing the business, making it our own. That's understandable, I said. He paused. We didn't mean to. I mean, we didn't realize how much was connected to you. I leaned back. No, you didn't. He looked like he wanted to sink into the chair. I guess I was hoping maybe we could find a way forward where we all still have a role, even if you're CEO. I smiled. Not to mock, just gently. Danny, this isn't a negotiation. You've got until next Friday to decide which option you're taking. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Right. As he left, I could feel the weight settle into his shoulders. Carla tried a different route, emotionally. She called me that evening just as I was pouring myself a cup of tea. Mom, can we talk for a second? I didn't say no. She sighed into the phone. I don't want things to end like this. I know we handled it badly. We weren't trying to hurt you. You were trying to replace me, I said, voice even, without understanding what you were taking on. She was quiet. I just don't want this to tear the family apart, she said finally. Then you should have thought of that before trying to push me out of the business I built. Another pause. I gave you a choice, I added. It's still on the table. Okay, she whispered. I understand. I believed her. And I also knew she wasn't ready to fully face it yet. Over the next few days, more confirmations rolled in. Vendors, clients, credit advisors, all of them reached out, not to the new team, not to Jake, but to me. The relationships I'd built didn't belong to a brand name or a business entity. They belonged to trust. My name, my handshake, my word. Every time I forwarded a message to our shared inbox with a short FYI, I knew it stung, but I didn't gloat. I just kept working. On Wednesday, I sent out an internal memo to the entire company. No bold fonts, no dramatic tone. I simply wrote, as many of you are aware, we are currently undergoing a leadership transition. In light of recent developments, I've asked for formal resignations from Jake, Dunny, and Carla by the end of next week, should they choose not to remain in their current roles under my leadership. This is not an ending. It's an opportunity for clarity. Our clients, vendors, and staff deserve stability, direction, and honesty, and that is what I intend to continue providing. Thank you all for your professionalism during this time. That email traveled faster than any gossip ever could. People didn't say much, but I noticed the difference. One employee left a sticky note on my desk. It said, "Thank you for not giving up on what you built." Another from production simply nodded as I passed and said, "Glad you're still here." It wasn't applause. It was respect. Then came Friday, the deadline. Carla sent her resignation first. It was typed, formal, precise, no emotion. Danny's came in 2 hours later, less clean, a few misspellings, a rambling paragraph about needing to find his own way. I believed he meant it. Jake waited until 4:15. His email said, "Fine, good luck." That was all. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I sent one final message to our HR manager, copying legal. It said, "Please process the resignations of Carla Johnson, Danny Johnson, and Jake Johnson, effective immediately. I will meet with department heads Monday to restructure roles and ensure continuity of service for all clients." That evening, I stayed late at the office. The halls were quiet again, but this time, it wasn't tension, it was peace. I sat at my desk, hands folded, and looked around at the space I'd spent a lifetime in. They had tried to take it from me, but what they ended up doing was reminding me why I built it in the first place. Not just for them, for me. Because I could, and because I knew how. 1 year later, I got a text from Carla. She said, "Dinner, just Uzme, Jake, and Danny. We'd really like to see you." That's all it said. No emojis, no exclamation points, no guilt. Just plain and careful, like someone trying to open a door they'd once slammed shut. I stared at the message for a while, thought about all that had happened in the past 12 months. Their business had launched some kind of logistics startup. I didn't follow it closely, but I heard things from vendors, from mutual contacts. They were struggling, growing slowly, sure, but not smoothly. And I could tell from the tone of Carla's message, this dinner wasn't about bragging. It wasn't about business at all. I replied, "Okay. Name the time and place." They picked a little restaurant by the river, quiet, not flashy. I arrived first, old habit. I sat by the window, watching the rain mist against the glass, thinking about what I'd say, whether I'd speak first or wait, whether I was open to softness. Again, they walked in just after 7, all three together. They looked different, older, somehow not in age, but in the way people look after they've had a few doors slammed in their own faces. Danny waved awkwardly when he saw me. Jake offered a nod. Carla smiled, tentative but genuine. "Hey, Mom," she said as they slid into the booth. "Hi," I said back. I kept my voice neutral, not cold, just open enough. We ordered drinks. No one rushed into conversation. I let the silence do what it needed to do. Sometimes silence says more than words ever could. Jake finally broke it. "We started the business," he said. "You probably know that." I nodded once. "I heard." He looked down at the menu even though he wasn't reading it. "It's been harder than we thought." That made me pause. I looked at him. He wasn't complaining, just stating a fact. Danny spoke next. "We've been wearing all the hats. Marketing, finance, logistics, even janitorial on some days. And it's," he trailed off, then chuckled a little. "It's a lot." Carla leaned forward. "And sometimes it feels like we're drowning in details no one trained us for. Just trying to stay afloat long enough to figure it out." I didn't say anything. I just listened. Jake looked up at me. "We didn't get it, Mom. Before, ... what it meant to build something from nothing, to have your name on the lease, your credit on the line, your hands in every part of the day-to-day. We thought," Carla started, then shook her head. "No, I thought it was just about updating things, rebranding, adding our touch." Danny picked it up from there. "But the truth is, we didn't respect what you'd done. We saw a legacy and assumed we could manage it like a group project." Jake nodded. "But it wasn't a project. It was a life's work, and we tried to take it like it was a hand-me-down jacket." I sat back, still watching them. They looked tired, but honest. There was no flattery in their words, no hidden angle, just grown adults realizing they'd been wrong in a way that mattered. Carla's voice was softer when she continued. "I think we thought that if we made you step aside, we'd finally be seen, but we didn't realize we were already seen through you." She looked up at me, not pleading, just searching. ... "And we're sorry. We know we hurt you, we betrayed your trust. We acted like children, not partners," Danny added quietly. "We didn't just try to take your business. We tried to take your dignity, and we didn't even realize that until we lost our own." Silence again. This one heavier. I let it hang there for a while. Then, I finally said, "That was a long year." Jake nodded. "Yeah, it was." Carla looked at me carefully. "We're not asking for anything." "I know," I said. "We just wanted you to know," Danny added, "that we see it now, what it took, what it cost, what we destroyed." I nodded slowly. Let them sit in the discomfort they'd earned. Then Jake said something I didn't expect. "We're trying again. The three of us. It's slow, but it's ours this time. We're not trying to build on someone else's foundation." They all looked at me at once. Carla added, "And if you'd ever be open to it, not running anything, not fixing it, just maybe mentoring us a little, we could use your insight." They weren't begging, they weren't buttering me up. They were simply asking to learn for the first time, and that meant something. I looked at them. My children, not perfect, not healed, but maybe finally grown. I took a sip of my wine, set it down carefully. Next Thursday work for a follow-up. The smiles that broke across their faces were quiet, restrained, but real. And for the first time in a long while, we sat together, not as adversaries, not as business rivals, but as a family, starting over the right way. So, that's my story. I'd love to hear what you think. Do you think I was too harsh, or did my kids need that reality check? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more stories like mine.